The neighborhood was supposed to be peaceful when we moved in. My wife Emily and I had spent years saving, working overtime shifts, skipping vacations, just so we could finally buy a home away from the constant city chaos. We dreamed of a place where our daughter could ride her bike without traffic whizzing by, where the neighbors waved instead of glared, and where weekends were spent grilling instead of fighting apartment parking wars. On the surface, this new suburban development had promised us all of that. But hidden behind the manicured lawns and the shiny, "Welcome to Maplewood Estates" sign lurked a nightmare with a smug smile and a clipboard. Her name was Karen. Karen wasn't just any neighbor. She was the self-appointed queen of the HOA, though technically she only held the position of secretary. You would think she was running for president of the United States the way she carried herself, patrolling the streets with her little dog yapping at her heels, snapping photos of lawns that weren't trimmed to military precision, or of trash bins left out 5 minutes past collection. From the very first week we moved in, Emily had told me in a whisper, "That woman is going to be a problem." I should have listened closer. The first incident was minor. Emily planted a small herb garden by our porch. Basil, mint, and a few tomatoes, nothing extravagant, just her way of making the house feel like home. A week later, an envelope was taped to our door. Violation notice, unauthorized landscaping. The HOA rulebook, apparently thicker than some law books, forbade planting non-approved greenery visible from the street. The fine, $150. Emily had laughed at first, thinking it was some kind of joke. But the letterhead was official, and the tone was deadly serious. We paid it, chalking it up to a one-time nuisance. But we should have known, Karen had just sniffed out her new prey. From then on, it was one petty citation after another. Our recycling bin wasn't flush against the curb. Emily's car had tire dust on the driveway. My daughter left her pink scooter leaned against the garage for exactly 1 hour, and we were fined $75 for storage violation. It was maddening. Still, Emily kept her calm better than I did. She'd smile, wave at Karen, and remind me not to explode. "It's just power games," she said. "Don't give her the satisfaction." But the breaking point came on a scorching July afternoon. Emily was returning from the grocery store when Karen, clipboard in hand, intercepted her before she could even carry the bags inside. "Emily, you've violated Section 14C of the Community Regulations," Karen announced with that nasal, superior tone. "Your grass is half an inch taller than the maximum allowance. You'll need to mow immediately or face a fine of $500. Emily, sweating and exhausted, set her grocery bags down on the porch and stared at Karen like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Half an inch," she repeated slowly. "It's grass, not a military runway." Karen sniffed, scribbling on her clipboard. "Rules are rules. If you can't afford to live here and maintain standards, maybe Maplewood Estates isn't the right community for you." That was it. Emily's patience snapped. "You know what, Karen? We're not paying another dime for your ridiculous fines. You can take your clipboard and shove it." I was inside the house when I heard the confrontation, and I rushed to the door just in time to see Karen's face turn crimson. She sputtered, "Oh, you'll regret this. You can't defy the HOA. I'll have the authorities handle this." Then she stormed off, dragging her poor dog down the sidewalk as though the little creature had offended her too. Emily blew out a shaky breath and muttered, "Let her try." We thought it was just another empty threat. After all, who calls the cops over grass? But 2 hours later, while I was grilling burgers for dinner, red and blue lights flickered outside our house. A patrol car pulled up. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains and hedges, hungry for drama. Karen stood proudly at the curb, arms folded, smirking as though she had summoned the cavalry to crush her enemies. 2 officers stepped out of the car. One was young, fresh-faced, clearly new on the job. The other was older, broad-shouldered, with a calm but firm expression. They walked up the driveway, and Karen wasted no time. "Officers, there they are, the criminals," she cried, pointing at Emily and me like she was identifying armed robbers. "They're refusing to comply with HOA regulations. They're hostile, dangerous, and disrespectful of community law." Emily crossed her arms, incredulous. "Dangerous? For not mowing the lawn short enough?" The younger officer looked uncertain, but the older one raised a hand to silence the noise. His eyes shifted from Karen to Emily to me. Then something strange happened. The moment his gaze landed on me, his expression flickered. His jaw clenched. His eyes widened slightly in recognition. "Sir," he said carefully, "can I have your name?" I gave it to him. And that's when Karen's smug grin faltered. The officer straightened up, almost snapping to attention. His voice changed, deeper, more formal. "Commander," he blurted, as if the word had escaped him before he could stop it. The entire yard went silent. Emily blinked. The neighbors' blinds fluttered with renewed curiosity. Karen's face drained of color. "Commander," she echoed faintly. The officer took a step back, suddenly looking both shocked and respectful. I sighed, rubbing my temples. It wasn't something I advertised in the neighborhood, but before retirement, I had spent 25 years in the military police. I hadn't just been a soldier, I had commanded an entire unit, trained law enforcement, and built a reputation that still carried weight. Apparently, this officer had served under my command years ago. "Yes," I admitted quietly. "It's me." The officer's posture changed immediately. He snapped a crisp salute, right there in my driveway, in front of every nosy neighbor. "Permission to speak freely, sir?" he asked. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping on dry land. Emily tried to stifle a grin. "Go ahead," I told him. The officer lowered his hand, but his voice still carried that military discipline. "With all due respect, sir, this is nonsense. We got called out here for grass." "Grass?" He turned to glare at Karen, who visibly shrank under his stare. "Ma'am, this is not a criminal matter. This is harassment of law enforcement resources." Karen sputtered, but the law. The rules. They're in violation." The officer cut her off sharply. "The police don't enforce law disputes. That's civil, not criminal. You do not waste 9/11's time with personal vendettas. You understand?" The younger officer looked like he wanted to crawl into a hole, probably embarrassed to even be standing there. Meanwhile, Karen's confidence crumbled. She tried to regain footing, pointing at us desperately. But they refused. They refused to pay. Emily stepped forward calmly. "That's right, because your fines are absurd. And unless you want to explain to a judge why you think an herb garden and a scooter are public threats, we're done here." The older officer exhaled slowly, then turned back to me. "Sir, again, my apologies. This shouldn't have come to your doorstep. We'll mark this as a misuse of emergency services. If it continues, charges may be filed against her." Karen's eyes widened. "What charges? Against me?" The officer gave her one last withering look. "Yes, ma'am. Filing false reports, harassment, misuse of 911. That's jail time if you don't wise up." For the first time since we'd moved in, Karen had no words. She stammered, then stormed off in a huff, dragging her dog so fast its paws barely touched the ground. Emily turned to me, still wide-eyed. "Commander, huh," she teased. I groaned. "We'll talk about that later." But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Karen wasn't the type to back off quietly. And as the neighbors whispered and the patrol car pulled away, a pit formed in my stomach. Because the war with Karen had only just begun.